against all odds. What are the chances of someone like me struggling alone to ever be free from fear, bitterness, and pain? When will it all end? Against all odds. Against all odds.
Hi, this is Dr. Diane Thibodeau with Against All Odds broadcast. I'd like to welcome you this morning. We provide a platform for individuals to come and share their testimony of how God helped them make it against all odds. All of us have situations and circumstances in our lives that we go through. And we fight through them, we push through them, but then you become a testimony to someone else and a roadmap, breadcrumbs if you would like, to show them how they can make it through. The scripture reference is in 2 Corinthians 4 and 7, but I'm going to read just 8. It says, "We are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed," because sometimes you feel a little crazy and a little confused, perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down to the ground, but never struck out. Because the Lord Jesus Christ is there undergirding us and undergirding our faith to help us to go to the next level. Well, I have someone with us today. My guest is Coach Faith Johnson. And I'd like to read a little bit about her information. Coach Faith Johnson Patterson. I've known her since she was so young, so sometimes that Johnson gets stuck. But God has brought her from such a long way and done so much in her life. And I want her to share, because I know that some young woman can stand on the platform that she's built and go to the next level. Faith Johnson Patterson, Coach Johnson, as she is affectionately known and professionally known, is a two-time Minnesota State High School League Hall of Famer basketball coach. Amen. Awesome. Head coach. She led Minneapolis North and De La Salle High School girls basketball team to their very first state championship. And that was in and you start saying 19 stuff, 1998 and 2011. Awesome. She had state tournament championship, state tournament appearances, 14 state tournament appearances. She has coached 24 Division I WNBA. That's awesome. So I know that she has so much more that she can say, and I am not a sports person professionally, but I know that some of the terminology is different, but I want you to look at some of her achievements. She's going to talk about, she's on the Wheaties box. Isn't this awesome? And this is North, girls.
Minneapolis North.
This is North.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome? She took the North girls basketball team and put them on the Wheaties box. That is awesome. And so many other things, but I'm going to let her talk about them before I start talking about stuff. But it is so good to have you with us, Coach. Is it okay to call you Coach?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So glad to have you with us. And if you could talk about how did you get to this level, and talk about your journey a little bit, because I know it didn't just happen overnight.
Right.
And so talk about your journey. How did you get here?
Well, you know, interesting. I've thought about that. I've been asked that question quite a bit. And I started writing a book that I'm putting together because of, you know, just the different experiences that I've encountered since coaching. And it really started from childhood.
Okay.
I grew up and I was really privileged to have the mother that I had. That has raised us, and she raised us by herself. Me, have 3 brothers. And actually, it was interesting. When I was probably about 5 or 6, I remember my mom being concerned of my brothers having like a mentor or role model in their lives, and that's when I started participating in sports myself.
Okay.
You know, I wanted to take that burden. For whatever reason, God put that in me, to feel responsible, or to take that on, to be like a role model for them.
Awesome.
So I started playing non-traditional girl sports, so football, basketball, baseball, or softball, I guess at that time. And then I started playing basketball in high school.
Okay.
So I was fortunate to obtain a Division I scholarship. And what a Division I scholarship means, and is basically you're at the highest level of a collegiate institution that pays for your full education,
Awesome.
plus perks, plus travel. And it was a life-changing experience for me. So my mom didn't have to worry about coming up with the money to pay for my education. But once I got that scholarship and understood the kind of the importance of what that did for my life, being in places, being able to travel,
Yes.
you know, people asking for
Yeah.
my autograph. It was just it was a
Yeah.
level that was a difference maker. And for me, growing up in the inner city, you know, you really aren't exposed to all the opportunities that are out there.
Of course.
And so for us growing up, just backtracking a little bit, you know, my brothers were, you know, kind of toying with, do I join this gang? Do I join that gang? I remember being at a friend's house, and gang members were trying to attack, you know, beat us up or whatever, and a guy comes out of his house with this big old rifle. I mean, we could have taken turns that would have led to a whole different path. But my
Right.
mother was a praying mother, and she got us in church early. And through all of that, and kind of backtracking to the, you know, being in college, I would never have seen any of those things had I not received that college, you know, education.
Scholarship.
I was back and thinking, you know, is there more to life than, you know, inner city Minneapolis and just having enough to make ends meet? But that's when I started seeing and getting the respect, and being exposed to people that had a lot of money, bigger houses, you know, neighborhoods, and all these different things. And I thought, God, you know, I didn't even know all this stuff was out here and it existed. And it may sound interesting, you know, because you would think people would understand that. But after that, as a result of that experience, that eventually led me to coaching. And then I knew at that point what I could, you know, the exposure I could give to young people and help them, you know, it's a life-changing thing to obtain that scholarship. And I was fortunate to have a lot of kids that wanted more.
Well, you know, the good thing that what I heard you say is that you wanted to become a role model for your brothers, and that role model did not have to be a man, not that they didn't have a father, but you were there in the house and you took on the responsibility. And that's what we're missing a lot of times, is no one wants to be the front runner anymore, you know, and you need a front runner. And so you became a front runner for them and showed them what was possible, and also introduced them to a different lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a result, my brothers, you know, went on to play high school basketball and play college basketball themselves.
Awesome.
And then, you know, they experienced the same thing, you know, even for me playing playing instruments at the church.
Well, that's true.
And
You
so-
were the drummer.
Drummer, bass,
And bass player,
And so now
right?
to this day, you know, my brothers, you know, they took that over and took that on.
That is true. I remember
You
that.
know,
You sure
and to
were.
watch them now participating still in church, you know, they're playing, you know, the instruments. And I watch that, I look at that like, wow, you know, I actually had, you know, something, you know, to do with that. But sports, as big as it is really, when you participate, especially for girls, what it does is it helps direct you and keep you on the right path and keep you away from, you know, making choices in your life, the
Bad
disciplines
choices,
that it
right.
gives you, the competitiveness to compete and not give up.
Exactly.
You know, there are skills that you receive from that, that and it's similar to me than how you guys preach in church, in a sense, you know, about having faith, you know, not giving up. And so for me, I grew up, and you may not know this, but I always wanted to be, it was kind of interesting. I watched other ministers, and I'm really blessed to have, you know, been raised under you guys in terms of my, you know, spiritual journey. But I always wanted to be in the ministry, but I just
Oh.
wasn't called.
Well, you were called.
I wasn't
and
called.
you were in a different type of ministry.
Because I thought it was so cool, and I would, I'd see people up there ministering, and I was like, God, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. I want to be like that. I just thought it was the coolest thing, when a pastor, or in your case, a prophetess would walk in, just the aura of confidence, the aura of just, I know who I am, or just knowing that you're in a position where you have to lead and guide people, and your faith and your strength is that your congregation is only as good as your leadership.
Exactly.
And so for me, I kind of had that, and you're right, God called me to coach high school basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I took that with me, those tools, and I knew that my teams were only going to be as good as I could be, or the amount of faith that I would have.
Yeah.
And I got all that from growing up in church.
Isn't that awesome? Now, so you became their pastor, basically, or their minister, because you ministered life into them. And there were so many young people that came to know the Lord through Coach Johnson.
Yep.
They really came to know, and you brought many of them to church.
Yeah.
Helped them with many problems. Because, when you start dealing with the lives of these young people, there's so much in their life, so many entanglements, and they need so much help. So you need someone that has the spiritual intuitiveness to help them to go to the next level. And that's what you did. You brought them to a place where they wanted to go to college.
Right.
They wanted to see college. They wanted to leave North Minneapolis. You gave them the world. And I know when they became the North High, the girls on the Wheaties box. I wish you could see it really, really close. But I think it's in, where is it at, that people could pull it up to see it?
It would be in the Star Tribune. Most of those things are archived in the Star Tribune. Yeah.
It's archived in the Star Tribune. And you should see the faces of these girls and these kids. It is just so awesome. This will be history.
Yeah.
They'll always be on the Wheaties box, and they can always tell their children and their grandchildren that they are on the Wheaties box. Isn't that awesome? God has done some great things in Coach Johnson's life, but not only in her life, but in the lives of each one of these children that are on here. So let's talk about some of your other awards. She's got magazines. She's been on Sports Illustrated. Talk about some of your other accomplishments.
Well, I brought this Sports Illustrated one because it was kind of an interesting part. I coached with my husband. He is my assistant. And so there's an article in here, because part of the journey, especially for an African-American female in sports, and just to kind of, I was the first African-American female to coach in a Minnesota State tournament.
I'm sure.
And then also to win. And I'm the only one inducted into the Hall of Fame, or 2 Hall of Fames at this point.
That's awesome.
And so the fight was really when we first started coaching, because I coached John, my husband, was my assistant. Most people, we'd go to a game or whatever, thought he was the head coach. They assumed because he was a man. And I went through that for a number of years. I had to continue to win until they start seeing my name consistently being named as the head coach, that I was actually the head coach. And that was something that was just, a thing that was really difficult, and it was really hard. So there's an article that came out when I got pregnant.
Okay.
They talked about, John would finally have his chance to be the head coach because I was pregnant.
Isn't that amazing?
It was unbelievable.
But see how people will try to bring division. Now, God used this as a means to help these young people, showed that a couple, African-American couple, can work together. So as the Coles were talking about marriage and relationship, that's the same way you and John were working together.
Absolutely.
He was covering you, you was covering him. But how people will come in and say stupid stuff like, okay, you've been blocking John all these years. Now he finally gets his opportunity, or get his opportunity up the back, so to speak.
Yeah, but what was really interesting is when that came out, and I can mimic what the Dr. Coles were saying, in that it was really watching you and Apostle Rufus that helped us
Amen.
through this.
Amen.
And the way in which he treated you, you could tell you guys were in sync. There was no competition.
Amen.
And the way in which he treated you as his wife and and the respect he gave you as the first lady of the church, and then your credentials, that's what we grew up under.
Amen.
And so, although John, you know, I mean, we're all human. A couple of times, you know, he got in the flesh a little bit.
Of course.
Wanted some of the, you know,
Glory.
the attention and glory. But it was quickly checked because we knew where we came from.
Yeah.
And you guys were an amazing example for us in how to deal with that.
Thank you.
Not to mention, you know, I had a mother that also would
Right.
also put us both in check as well. And so, you know, it just, I mean, you guys have been I've been blessed in a sense, and there are so many things that, you know, people don't know that I literally went through while coaching. I mean, T.D. Jakes once said, before any public success, there's a private struggle.
Yeah.
And that private struggle did exist.
That
I
is
mean,
so true.
I went from I probably had 8 surgeries as
Yes,
I was
you
coaching
did, yeah.
high school basketball. My son was we were in the championship game. My son was in the hospital, you know, at least 3 of those years with my mother,
Yes.
who was with him while I'm coaching the state tournament. I'll never forget coaching in an all-star game, and I came back to the hospital. My son was sick, and he was being rushed to, you know, have emergency surgery because he had a blockage in his intestines. I mean, so I had praying people, you know. You guys would come, you guys would pray. I was always at the altar during the season, if you think about it.
I remember. I
I was always getting prayer, you know.
You're not just crying over your children,
Yeah.
but crying over other people's children.
Absolutely. I mean, and some of those kids, they went through so much. I mean,
Yes.
their parents and I obviously wouldn't name them, but, you know, some of them were homeless.
See?
Some of the kids had parents on, you know, drugs, alcohol. You know, there was a lot of abuse.
Did they go on from that to be in college? These girls that you're mentioning?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I would tell what they do, but then you would know,
You know
kind of the family.
Just the idea that they were homeless, abused, drug parents, whatever. I mean, they would know who they are. You don't have to mention their name. But you dropped the breadcrumbs. Someone had to drop the breadcrumbs. You dropped the breadcrumbs and say, follow me this way, you know. And as you did that, then these girls began to realize, I don't have to be a sexual object or sexual favors. I don't have to do sexual favors to get to where I need to go. I don't need to be a victim. I don't need to be abused, but I can accomplish something in my life, even if they were the first ones to graduate from college.
Yes, and many were.
They were the first ones.
Many were, which their siblings, you know, have gone on to participate in sports or, you know, go to college. A lot of my former athletes are coaching themselves now.
Wow.
They're in positions where
right?
they can impact and give back. And I hear from them on Facebook, of course, you know, you got, and I do like Facebook for that purpose.
Reason, right.
But someone actually just posted that, one of the athletes posted that, a picture of the Wheaties box.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was about a month ago, and so proud. And in it, she said, Coach Johnson thought enough of me to put me on varsity, and now I'm on a Wheaties box.
Wow.
So, you know, in coaching and even in the ministry, and I'm sure, you know, obviously you know way more about that, sometimes it just takes a minute. It does. You may not hear back from somebody for years later, and then all the stuff that you go through to help that person, and all the, you know, for you guys, all the praying, the fasting, you know, for me, all the stress, the weight, the loss of hair, but you know, all of that you put into it, and you know, and then somebody comes back, and finally, it's like, thank God, you know, it wasn't all for nothing.
Right. Because I remember some of them would come after Apostle Rufus graduated home to be with the Lord, and they would come and share that one of the boys wrote this long message about, I didn't know Apostle Rufus graduated to be with the Lord, but I remember when he came and got me out of the drug house. I remember, because I was like, oh, you going in the crack house, you know, but he went in there, went and got them, brought them out, and when he did, it made a statement. Some of them didn't have fathers.
Right.
And so they had no one to fight for them. And like yourself, like we did, like your mother did, you
Amen.
know,
Yep.
she fought for y'all. You know, being a single mom, North community, 4 kids, and a mother, because her mom was living with her
Yeah.
too, your grandmother, but she fought for y'all
Yep.
and established a foundation, and it evidently must have been a solid foundation. All of you guys are standing on that foundation.
That's right. That's right.
So
And
that
doing
is
well.
amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, and that's what I mean. I mean, I have so many people to thank just for being there and praying, or the examples. Sometimes when you want to give up and you just watch
Yes.
people,
Yes.
you know, fight through something. I mean, my mother is a very strong person that, you know, she's had a stroke, she's had, you know, but she still fights through
Yes.
every day,
exactly.
and just, you know, just to make sure that she's still working and she's doing great.
Yes.
You know, nothing stops her.
No.
And you watch that along with yourself, and you watch women that are in positions that do that. And I'm named Faith.
And that, well,
I am
how
named
can you
Faith,
get around
right?
that? You couldn't get around that name.
So, I mean, I thank God for, I mean, you know, I almost died once, you know, coaching. I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Got to the hospital just in time.
Wow.
And, you know, because I have a praying mom, you know, and same thing, you know, again with my son. But looking at my mother, you could just look at her and she's like, Faith, you know, he's going to be all right. You're going to be right. And I got pastors that pray. And, you know, one thing I can say, you know, to the late Apostle Rufus is one thing he implemented in me is, you know, the statement he used to say all the time, for me to lose, never.
That's exactly right.
And when I think about that, that is in my head, that is ingrained in my head along with my name, that helps me continue regardless of whatever the circumstances, the situation,
Exactly.
to fight.
That's right.
But also at the same time, I was put in a position to lead others.
Isn't that
And when you
amazing?
understand that, then you take that serious, because you could be a part of and affect someone's livelihood.
Exactly.
And understanding the responsibility of that is really what kept me on track. And I'm thank God for all these accolades and awards. I mean, there's so many things that I've been, the documentary that I'm a part of.
It's really great.
You know,
yes.
and I'll be, you know, at the state fair when they play that,
And
and
that's
just
this year, the
That's
state
this
fair.
year.
Okay.
August 23rd, and just, you know, I mean, I go around and I speak, you know, at symposiums, advocate for women, you know, women's sports, and not just about females, but just opportunities for people in general, and, you know, people of color. But I couldn't have done any of those things without the foundation that I received and the seeds that are continuing to be planted in me by people like yourselves. You know, my mother, other ministers that I've just grown up just to admire.
You know, and people don't realize that when you're fighting, you still have to fight for other people. They don't realize that. When you're going through, like I said, you're perplexed, you're even pressed down, but you're not crushed. And you're not counted out. And the Amplified says you're not counted out. Even though the weight, and it seems like the weight of the world sometimes, is on you, and you wonder, how am I going to get up out of this? How am I going to lift myself up? And it's to God's grace that you've been able to fight. And while you're fighting over here, helping them, then you got to use the other hand over here, fight over here, and you have to get up.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
And you don't even know how.
Yeah.
How
That's
you
true.
did it, you know? But you did it, and look at you today, you know? You're healthy. Your son is what? This is his second year in college?
His third, yeah, going on his third year, yeah.
Third year in college. I mean, and through it all, you know, God has brought you through. Well, we want to take the opportunity for you to pray for others, because there are other young ladies. You know, you may not be coaching like you were doing before, but you've left a trail. And like you said, now there are other young ladies that are doing what you did. And so they're coaching, and they're blessing others. And they know to reach back to you if they need some wisdom.
Amen.
You're available to them.
Yeah.
So I want you to minister to some of these young ladies that's still in the future, looking for what's my purpose? What's my assignment in life? share a little bit with them and pray for them.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity just to be a part of this. But Lord, I just, I thank you, God, for putting me in a position and using my life as a witness for those that are, hopefully those that, that watch this, or those that are just out there and understand the journey. And I ask, Lord, that you give them the strength and the insight and the wisdom and the mentors and role models, and put people in their lives as well as I've had in mind to be there for them, to minister to them, to be an aid and a support. And God, I just thank you that you just give them the, just to be able to see the vision and the calling and the purpose that you've placed on their lives, and the importance of the people that they interact with, the youth, whether it's other people in their lives. But God, give them the strength, let them see and understand the position they've been placed in and the power that they have to impact in a positive direction. And God, I just thank you. I thank you for this time to be a part of this broadcast. I thank you for Apostle Diane. Thank you for my mother and those that have continued to be there for me. And God, I just thank you, and I praise you and give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
So listen, even if you're not on the Wheaties box, and maybe you don't have a trophy, but Jesus already died for you. And he died so that you could be free. And what Faith Johnson Patterson has said, I've laid out a foundation. She fought so these other girls can have a way to get through. That's still your assignment. You still have to fight to win, no matter what it looks like, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what contrary winds are blowing in your life. You have a responsibility to win. And Jesus has already made that possible. God says, I know the plan. I already know the plan that's by your name. There's a plan for your life by your name, written in the Lamb's Book of Life. There's a reason for who you are being, who you are. Go win some souls. Go touch somebody else's life. And you may not even have to go all the way out in the community. This is how God used Faith. This is how God used Coach Patterson. He used her, he took her into the community. Maybe you won't go into the community, but what about your household? What about your nieces and your nephews? What about your sisters and your brothers? She became a role model for her brothers. So you can't say that I can only lead my sisters. She said, I had to be the role model for my brothers. And because she did, her brothers, as a matter of fact, Terrell just graduated from college. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can have challenges, but because of the strong role model she has become, her youngest brother just graduated. He had some challenges, but he went back and took that ground. Go back and take your ground. Don't let the enemy have it. I don't care what he told you. I don't care what they said about you. I don't care what the assignment the enemy has against you. Fight your way through. Make up your mind that I refuse to be so confused, because what the devil does is he tries to bring such confusion to your mind till you can't even figure out how to get out of the situation. But you need to know that God has already made a way of escape for you. Follow the path that God has laid out for your life. Follow the assignment. Seek him. If you don't know, seek him and ask him, what is my purpose and what is my assignment? And don't be afraid to exercise what God has for you. Again, this is Dr. Diane Thibodeau and Coach Faith Johnson Patterson that's here today sharing the word of the Lord and encouraging you to move on into your future. No matter what odds are against you, press forward. And please know this is Against All Odds broadcast, Dr. Diane Thibodeau, and all the information to contact us is at the bottom. Bless you.